New Orleans signed C.J. Spiller for something other than sitting on the fucking bench.
31 other passes that should have been intercepted with you.
So that's why I have David Johnson on my board higher.
If you're doing a live draft, wait till you're drunk to draft this guy. We welcome you to the Fifth Down.
What up, Fifth Downers? This is Johnny Slokes. We got my partner in crime, K-Mill.
Hey, what's up, guys? How you doing?
Yeah, you're here on the Fifth Down. We're giving you that extra down advantage. Today, we thought we'd do a show on some guys that might still be available in your league after all your drafts. We know most of you guys have already done your drafts, so we thought it would be a good idea. It's like, hey, here's some players you can probably use to strengthen up your team. Then later on in the show, we're going to go over the Carolina Denver game. We'll give you guys a little preview of who we like over there. So,
yeah.
Here we go. We'll just want to just jump right into it.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's talk about those waivers. Who are some hot pickups you're thinking of, Johnny?
Oh, I figured we could start at quarterback. It doesn't look like there's a whole lot out there, but if you are a guy that's trying to stream some quarterbacks, there are some that are available, like Ryan Fitzpatrick's available in 42% of the leagues. Tannehill's 35%. RG3's 25%. You got Flacco at 18%. Jay Cutler's out there. I know Alex Smith's out there. There's some players that you could be using for streamers. Say if you're a guy that only drafted Tom Brady, or maybe you just waited a little bit too late to draft your quarterback. There's some guys out there for you.
Yeah, I think one of my favorites that you didn't mention is Brock Osweiler, or I like to call him Cock Swallower. Yeah, because I'm a Denver fan. But
yeah, he's available in 28% of the leagues.
Yeah, 20. He's only owned in 28%, and I mean, he's a guy that's got obviously a lot of weapons. Will Fuller, Braxton Miller, obviously DeAndre Hopkins. He's got Lamar Miller in the backfield, so I think that
he does have a pretty good matchup against Chicago too.
Yeah, he honestly has the highest ceiling of anybody that's still widely available.
I mean, you really got to like that matchup playing Chicago at home. I mean, Chicago isn't. I know they did try to strengthen up their defense, but you got to still think it's going to be a couple weeks before they put everything together, you know?
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, I think that Brock Osweiler, I love the ceiling for him. I don't know. I guess this is really a prove-it type of contract for him. He got the big contract, so now he's got to prove that he's worth it.
I mean, you couldn't ask for a better first game for him, though, you know?
Oh, yeah, you got to love that matchup. That Chicago defense has already proven this preseason is very weak. Chicago is going to get blown out in a lot of games this year.
I think this one will be pretty close, though.
Really? You think so? I don't
think
see
so.
It. I don't think that the Bears' offense can keep pace with all the weapons on this Texans' offense. Even if Brock Osweiler just hands the rock off to Lamar Miller all night, I still think they're going to get damage done.
Another one that probably wouldn't be a bad streamer is like RG3. He's owned in 25% of leagues. He gets to play
I love that one too.
Philadelphia on the road. I mean, it might be a road game, but Philadelphia doesn't really have like a scary pass defense, really. I mean, I don't think that the Browns should get blown out in that game. It should be relatively close.
I think so too. I think that the Browns' defense is better than advertised, and I think that they're going to be able to keep them in the game, because I do actually like RG3's ceiling this season as well. I think that he's got a lot of nice weapons. As I'm hearing, Terrell Pryor's doing well. Corey Coleman's still kind of a question mark, but has an obviously high ceiling. And, they got two backs that I sort of like, like as far as like late rounds in fantasy drafts. They're not my favorites, but I do think that this is an offense that could really, if RG3 is a competent enough quarterback, really be successful.
You could be surprised some people. I agree. Any other guys worth mentioning that could be some flyers at quarterback?
Those are the guys I like. Personally, there's some leagues where, Matt Ryan would be available, but I wouldn't advise, streaming him week to week. I think he'd make a good second quarterback for like a two-quarterback league.
I kind of like his first matchup against Tampa Bay.
Yeah, I don't mind that one either, but I do think that the Tampa Bay defense is more of an improved unit too. I guess there are definitely worse options out there for sure.
I mean, another deeper option, you could go with Joe Flacco going against Buffalo this week. He's owned at 18%. But other than that, I think that's the three that I'd feel comfortable streaming.
Yeah, absolutely. I could get behind that.
Let's go over to the running back. There's actually quite a few running backs that I like that I've seen on the waiver. Obviously, with the cutting of Justin Forsett, Buck Allen is still on the waiver wire. He's only owned in 11% of leagues. I mean, I know you also got Kenneth Dixon and Terrence West over there as well, but you got to think that he's going to get a chunk of that offense.
Yeah, just the news and notes. Forsett was re-signed today, but
was he?
Yeah, he was re-signed today, but it sounds like it's going to be more of a split backfield. It doesn't seem like it's going to be Forsett's going to be always the 1-2 back. I think it's going to be a hot hand situation. Yeah, I think it's going to be a hot hand situation. But, yeah, Terrence West is still widely available, and he's right now the assumed starter. So it's kind of a confusing conundrum, honestly. I personally, if I was weak at running back, I think the one to own is West. But, if Buck Allen's still available and you got like an IR spot, you could put somebody on IR and then put them on your bench. There's worse stashes out there for sure.
And for all you Ezekiel Elliott owners, your handcuff is still sitting there in the waivers in most leagues. Alfred Morris 26%. I really do think that he's the handcuff to Elliott over, say, like a guy like McFadden.
Yeah, I think that Morris flashed enough this preseason to be a very successful back behind Elliott. I don't think he gets quite the carries to be really fantasy relevant. If you're in a really deep league where you have a lot of flex positions, or if you have a position that is a dire need because it's so deep, he's not a bad thing, but he's just not going to get the volume to be that. But obviously, if you have Elliott and you have a deep bench, I would easily take him because Elliott's kind of already for me a health concern with what we've seen in the preseason. So I would just do it to do it.
Another guy that's sitting on the waiver is probably one of my favorites is Devontae Booker, owned in 17% of leagues, and he's looking like a guy that could definitely be that number 2 now that Hillman's gone.
Oh yeah, I know. Yeah, it's his job now. Hillman was released, so it's definitely his job. And I love his ceiling. He has such a high ceiling. C.J. Anderson, obviously, they're giving him starter money, so he is going to start. But I think that Booker steals a couple carries here and there from him, steals a little bit of passing down work, because the coaches have already talked about how good of a pass catcher out of the backfield he is. So, I wouldn't mind seeing a lot of Devontae Booker this year, and I think that he's going to have a pretty successful season behind C.J. Anderson.
And then, obviously, there's some other backs that are still available, like guys like James White's available in 37%. You got Theo Riddick available in leagues in 33% of his leagues he's only owned. So I kind of surprised me, especially when you look at guys like Deion Lewis is still owned in 32% of the leagues, and you got these guys that are sitting on the waivers. Yeah,
the only way I would want Deion on my team right now with the amount of time he's missing is if I had a free IR spot. That's about it. Honestly, other than that, just get rid of him. But Kevin White represents I think he'll get the volume. I think that the passing down work that Deion Lewis was seeing last year, James White can step into that role and get a lot of volume there. But the thing is, I don't know if he can quite do what Deion did last year or what Deion can still do. So, it's kind of confusing, but it's kind of weird that he is unowned.
Yeah, and then for any of those Jordan Howard truthers, he's available in 10%. Another interesting one is Rob Kelly. I think he's going to definitely be that number 2 over there in Washington, maybe even possibly the starter, say if Matt Jones is the falter. He's only owned in 6% of leagues.
Yeah, he's widely available, and he's a guy that could potentially push Alfred Morris for that starting job. And I honestly think it's a very realistic possibility because he didn't necessarily run away with the role last year. I mean, he showed flashes, but he was fumbling the ball. He had butterfingers. He was a little bit more of a confident pass catcher out of the backfield than Alfred Morris was last year. but he just didn't. He didn't show us everything. So this year is a real big year for Matt Jones, and if he can't prove it, I think that the Redskins are not going to be hesitant to pull him out and put Kelly in because he's had a great preseason.
Yeah, I mean, to put it in other words, Matt Jones was a shitload of fuck last year.
That's just putting it bluntly, yes.
Yeah, so let's go over to some receivers. Some of my favorites, they may or may not be in your league still, that are available. Michael Thomas is available in 50% of leagues. He's owned in 50% of leagues. I think he's one of my favorite late-round targets, to be honest.
Yeah.
You also got Tajay Sharp available in 38, or he's 38% owned.
That's my favorite. That's my favorite personally because of what, like, I mean, the Titans have already pretty much said that he's the number 2 receiver currently. Like, I think it was Kendall Wright. He doesn't even have a role anymore because Tajay Sharp and Rashard Matthews are expected to be the 2 starters.
Well, I like Michael Thomas because I think he's going to fit that Marquise Colston role, you know, give you those fringe, like, wide receiver 2 numbers, possibly even. He looked pretty good in the preseason as well, making some pretty nice-looking catches. So, I mean, both of these are pretty high-side rookies that I've seen on the waivers. Also, Treadwell is available. I'm not as big on him. You also got Tyler Boyd, another guy I'm not as big on, but he could emerge later on in the season.
I actually like him working out of the slot, though, in Cincinnati. I think that's a big upside area now that with the absence of Marvin Jones. I think that he could step into a nice big role because Andy Dalton doesn't have a lot of targets right now with, Eifert missing time. But so that could mean increased work for Jeremy Hill and Gio Bernard. But I also do like
he's available in 82% of leagues.
I wouldn't mind having that.
Is there any other receivers that we haven't touched on yet?
Another one I want to just briefly touch on because we all know, and I might get some hate mail for this one. Mike Wallace, he's available or he's owned in 37% of leagues right now currently. And he's a guy that has shown great rapport with Joe Flacco. We don't really know what that receiving situation is, but there's rumors that Steve Smith might not be ready for Week 1. Brashard Perryman might not be ready for Week 1. He's expected to not make it for Week 1, even though he says he is.
Mike Wallace is owned in less leagues than Steve Smith.
I know, yeah. So what I'm saying is I think that the first couple of weeks, I think that Kamar Aiken and Mike Wallace see the most volume out of that entire Baltimore receiver corps.
All right, I mean, you got to like the fact that Joe Flacco has a big arm that he finally has a quarterback that can throw to him,
Yeah, that is true.
All right, and you want to go over to some tight ends that are available?
Yes, I do.
All right, so we got ones that I've noticed. You got Virgil Green. He's owned in 26% of leagues. Chris Clay, 25%. Vance McDonald, 24%. Jordan Cameron, 22%. Jesse James, 19%. And then, it really starts to tail off from there. I mean, is there any one of those guys that you want to roster on your team? I know you're kind of big on Virgil Green.
Yeah, and it's not just because I'm a Broncos fan. I think that he's an extreme breakout candidate. Like I said, don't curse at me because I'm wrong, but I'm telling you, you got Trevor Siemian, who's a young quarterback, young and inexperienced. He was a 7th round pick, obviously, but he's a check down king, and he loves check down. And the best check down target is a tight end, and Virgil Green is a big target. He's a nice red zone target. I love his upside. He could potentially be probably the biggest surprise, and if you get him now, I have him owned in a couple of leagues. You're getting a guy that could potentially carry you to a championship.
Yeah. I mean, I know another one that I like. I've seen him and his connection with Tyrod Taylor look pretty good.
Yeah, I do like that. He was
deep down the field too.
Yeah, and it was kind of a crime on how underutilized he was last year in Buffalo.
All right. Any other tight ends you want to mention? There's Jesse James there. Are you buying into him at all?
Yeah, a little bit because he's a nice red zone target, but I think he's more of a touchdown-dependent tight end than, like, say, Virgil Green because he has to get touchdowns to get his nut every week. A guy like Virgil Green, I think he's going to get the yards no matter what. You're still going to get about 10 points each, even on a down week. But a guy like Jesse James, Pittsburgh, I think you actually have some better stats than me on this one. It's not a very high-volume offense for a tight end. Kubiak's system fits a tight end well. That's just my comparison.
Yeah, I mean, the coordinator over there in Pittsburgh hasn't really been known to throw a lot of volume at the tight end position. While you've seen Kubiak work wonders with, say, a guy like Owen Daniels in Houston,
Yeah,
I get what you're saying. All right, so is there any? We come across 4 positions. Is there any other players that we haven't mentioned that you would like to give a shout out to?
No, I think that's about it.
And you said that you had some defensive streamers that are available on the waivers for those leagues that actually use defenses.
Yeah, I just have one, and it's my stream of the week for defense because I'm a guy that I like to get my value in those first 10 rounds, and then I worry about my defense way later. So if you're one of the guys like me, you're looking to constantly stream a defense week in, week out, and it's not a bad strategy at all. This week, I think that the best option that's widely available is the Steelers' defense. They draw a really good matchup.
They got Washington, don't they?
Yeah, they have Washington, and they're only owned in 21% of leagues. They play in Monday Night Football. They have the number 8 defense in fantasy points last year. They allowed a lot of yards, but they did have a solid defense. I think that run defense is more improved, and I think that they're going to be a nice little they also got Justin Gilbert as a corner now. They just made a trade for him. I think that this is a good streaming defense for guys that are trying to stream a defense.
I think I'd be a little bit worried that game might be a shootout, to be honest.
Yeah, I would be worried too, but I do like it.
I mean, you could gamble with a way lesser defense. Say you could pick up, like, San Francisco's defense who plays, like, the Los Angeles Rams. You got to think that's going to be a low-scoring game.
Yeah, that's a good point too.
I think we're just going to jump right into the Carolina and Denver matchup. It's, like, basically the Super Bowl rematch. There's a big difference between last year and this year, though. We got Cam Newton versus Trevor Siemian instead of the aging Peyton Manning. Do you like either one of these quarterbacks in this matchup? I kind of don't.
No,
I think Cam Newton will be okay. Like, say if he gets like a rushing touchdown, but I'm not really liking either one of these matchups.
No, I don't. These are two awesome defenses. They're gonna clash again. Obviously, much improved or much unimproved if you're talking about Denver because there's really not much of an upgrade between Peyton Manning last year and Trevor Siemian. But having said that, Denver's secondary is one that I don't think Cam Newton's going to get a passing touchdown on. Also, I think that the only touchdown Cam Newton gets is a rushing touchdown, so that there is some upside with Cam Newton there, but at the price you have to get him at in most drafts, So, but if you do have Cam Newton, I think he does get a rushing touchdown. I don't think he passes for over 300 yards.
Water carefully with Cam Newton this week.
Yeah, definitely, and he could throw a lot of picks too because you got the best secondary in the league is in Denver. You got to remember that.
I mean, you got to also look at it like who is going to be the unsung hero in this matchup. Like, who do you actually have? First off, before I ask that, who do you have winning this game? I feel like I shouldn't have to ask you this one.
And me being a homer, I know I get some flack for this one. I'm going to say it's close. I'm going to say it's very similar to what happened in the Super Bowl. I'm going to say it's 17-14 Denver.
See, I think I have to go with Carolina on this one. I do think that it'll be a close game. I mean, if you're looking at it like who's going to be this unsung hero, I think it's going to be Greg Olsen. I think that's the one area of the field where Denver kind of struggles to cover is the tight end position. They were 23rd in the league last year, and I think that's the one area of the field that Cam Newton might be able to expose them a little bit. And
actually, I agree with you, and I think that it's actually going to be a good week for both tight ends. Actually, I think that Virgil Green has a decent enough game. I think that Trevor Siemian targets him early and often. But I also think that I totally agree with you. I think that Greg Olsen's going to be the so-called MVP of this game.
And another way I'm going to look at it is the offensive line play. 'Cause you got to think there's going to be a lot of rushing in this game. Although Denver doesn't really have a very good offensive line, they tried to improve it, but according to Pro Football Focus, they're still ranked 28th in the league. Carolina actually has the 6th best offensive line, but they have to run against that vaunted Denver defense still, who actually Pro Football Focus rated as the number 1 defensive line. But Carolina itself has a pretty good front seven, so I think that it'll be kind of tough sledding for both running backs as well.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that C.J. Anderson's best strengths in this game are going to come from catching passes out of the backfield, which he's proven he's capable enough of doing.
Do you think he'll lose any of that work to Booker?
I don't think so in this game. I think that this game is going to be the first one where Kubiak loves to utilize a running back. Like, he loves the ground and pounder, and I think that he's really, after giving C.J. Anderson the big contract that he wanted, in free agency, well, he got it. So, I think Kubiak's going to just try. He's going to be a run first team, especially with Simeon at quarterback. They're going to try to. I think he gets stuffed a lot, though. I don't think that it's going to be a huge breakout game for him. I don't think that comes till later.
I do think that both defensive lines could potentially give the opposing offenses some issues in this game. I think it's going to be an ugly one. I do agree with the score. I do think it's going to be real close, like a 17-14 type of game. So, I mean, those kind of games, though, you kind of don't want to really make mistakes by, throwing an interception. So I think that both teams are going to try to rely on their run game. I think whoever gets that going might have the upper hand in this game.
I do think so. I have my prediction about the Carolina run game, though. I think that Jonathan Stewart he won't have an insanely great game, but I do think he loses a little bit of work to, say, a guy like Mike Tolbert, some of his other counterparts. I think that they're going to kind of shift some more people in there. I think, and actually now that I'm thinking about it, I think that Booker might actually get a little bit of work just for the fact of, maybe C.J. Anderson's ineffective. Let's try the new guy. So, there's that chance, too. But I think this is going to be a game where really nobody's successful on the ground.
I mean, if you play in some of those leagues where you get like fractional points per carry, Jonathan Stewart might actually get more of a volume than C.J. Anderson, but I don't see him being overly effective with the workload that he's going to get.
Yeah, absolutely.
If we look at the wide receiver matchups here, there's no Norman in this matchup. Obviously, you got DT. He's going to be covered probably either by can't even pronounce his name, to be honest. But they also drafted a rookie as a understudy. And then you got Sanders working on McLean. If Trevor Siemian can prove that he's a little bit of a competent quarterback, he might be able to expose the secondary a little bit. Because I don't think that the secondary is really where Carolina's strength is on their defense.
Yeah, that's a good point too. And I think that DT gets a touchdown in this game. I don't know so much about Sanders. If he does, it'll be a nice long one. But I do think that DT gets a red zone touchdown in this game, or Virgil Green. And
then on the other side of the ball, you got Kelvin Benjamin. Obviously, he's going to be locked on by Chris Harris. And then either Funches or Jim's going to be guarded by either Talib or Roby. I mean, you gotta. This is kind of what you were talking about. They got this deadly secondary. It might be tough sledding for these receivers, and that's why I'm kind of leaning towards Greg Olsen in this game.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that if the Denver defense has one weakness, they don't have many, but I think it is right up the middle for the tight end. I think that Greg Olsen gets a lot of work in this game. I think he comes away with at least a touchdown. I think maybe even he goes over 100 yards. All
right. So is there anything else that you want to talk about during this game?
No, actually, I would say about the special teams, but I really don't know what to expect. I think that McManus. I don't think that either kicker is going to be overly effective.
I think Gano might be working in for 2 or 3 field goals.
That's very true.
I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if both kickers end up kicking some longer field goals too.
Yeah, exactly. Especially if the offenses fall flat. So I don't know, but. I definitely
the way I like to look at kickers is how good is the opposing team in the red zone. How good is the opposing team's defense in the red zone compared to how good you are in the red zone. I think that's where a lot of teams will stall, is close to that red zone, maybe a little bit further out. and that's where you want your kickers to be, you know?
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of a tough draw for both teams to start the season, you know, because they're both good teams. I think they have both end up being in the playoffs this year.
It almost feels
Carolina,
scripted.
maybe or maybe not. Yeah, it almost seems scripted, but you know, I don't know. This is going to be a great matchup. I'm really excited about it, obviously. But I do think this is going to be a nice ground and pound game, and I don't think either team gets a whole lot done. So I think that both teams stay under 20 points. And I think if anybody does come out impressive, though, I do agree with you. I think that it will be Greg Olsen or Virgil Green. I think that the tight end position in this game is the one to watch for sure.
Well, you know, Carolina was more like in the middle of the pack, like they are 14th against the tight end. So, but you know, they also have a little bit of shift in their personnel back there, so it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, definitely interesting.
All right, so I mean, today was a short show. During the season, our shows might tend to be a little bit shorter as we are just only covering specific areas. So, is there anything else that you want to bring up?
No. Yeah, just, you know, hey, give us a like on iTunes, download our shows. We love seeing the increased numbers. We love the support. Please help us get out there, get our name out there. We're here for you guys. We're here for you guys to win your leagues. So if you know a friend that doesn't really know a whole lot about fantasy football, needs some insight, send them our way.
Wednesday, we're going to be going over our weekly rankings. We'll have maybe some injury updates, and we will have a surprise host on our show. He might be our third host. He's going to try it out. We'll let him introduce himself on Wednesday. So, yeah, for now, just follow us on Twitter at SitDownFF. Subscribe and review us on iTunes, please. We love you. That'll do it for today's show. Peace out, Sit Downers.
Peace out.